Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scalera Show the day after the Iowa Caucus. Still 9:30 a.m. on the East Coast. Absolutely no results from the disaster that was supposed to bring us a plethora of results. We were supposed to get the popular vote, who won the first ballot, who won the second ballot. It was going to be this grand experiment. Well, the grand experiment was an absolute disaster. Who knows, maybe years from now, they won't even have the Iowa Caucus beginning off the race as a consequence of what happened last night. Last night reminded me of a sporting event where, a kid's sporting event where everybody gets a participation trophy and say, hey, I'm a winner. Well, that's what happened last night. Candidate after candidate claimed victory. At this point, the biggest one was Pete Buttigieg. He even went on this morning, I won, this, that, whatever. And they're like, well, how can you claim that you won? He's like, well, I overperformed in this place and that place. When really, he's probably not going to win. Bernie Sanders is probably going to end up winning. But at this point, it's anybody's guess. And even people who underperformed, who seemed to underperform, like Joe Biden, are now can claim that basically the whole thing is rigged. The results are basically, who's going to say that the results are even factual or not? There's so many inconsistencies. I definitely did better than what they're saying I did. And let's just move on. And that's exactly what he's doing. And I don't blame him. That's the only thing he can do at this point. But history was made last night because it was the first time I've ever seen a Republican candidate claim victory after a Democrat primary. Trump tweeted this morning, the only person who can claim victory in Iowa last night is Trump. Man, it must suck to continually lose to that man. Who knows, maybe he'll even bring it up. I wouldn't put it past him in tonight's State of the Union address. But you do have to feel bad. You have to feel bad for some of these candidates who put all their eggs in one basket. The ones that campaigned the hardest in Iowa, the ones who spent the most money. We're talking about Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar. Even Elizabeth Warren did really, really well last night. At least it seemed like it. But, the problem with the coverage, and I watched CNN mostly, and I'm not a CNN guy, but I wanted to see how the Democrats were kind of reacting to what they were seeing. And they were mostly in college towns. They were in, urban areas. But you were definitely seeing a split between Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, but there was a lot of them there. Pete seemed to be doing really well. And then, Joe Biden, you knew he wasn't going to do well in these places. And it kind of reminded me of, in the 2016 election where, they were in the cities, big cities. A lot of people were like, oh, Hillary's going to win. We love Hillary. And then all of a sudden the results are coming in from the rural areas. And you're like, well, what's going on? I'm not hearing from any Trump supporters. How could this be? So it kind of seemed like, they weren't in the rural areas, asking everybody who was 60, 70 years old who they were voting for, because, some of those districts probably had 50 voters, 80 voters, mostly probably elderly voters. They weren't in any of those places. And Biden in those places were supposed to do well. So at this point, you really don't know who won, who lost. And at this point, it doesn't really matter that much anyway. Because you have to remember, New Hampshire is in 8 days. And then after that, South Carolina and Florida. And you have to put things into perspective. Now, people will be like, oh, Biden's done. He's done. He got killed. Well, he wasn't supposed to do all that well anyway. So it doesn't really matter. Iowa's got a little over 40 delegates. New Hampshire's got 24. Then you go down to South Carolina, where Biden is running strong. South Carolina, I think, has 54 delegates. And then Florida after that with over 200 delegates. So you have to put these things into perspective. Now, if Joe Biden underperforms in South Carolina, then come talk to me. Then, we may have some type of upset going on. But at this point, you're still looking at Bernie. You're still looking at Biden. But there definitely seems to be an enthusiasm gap, without a doubt. I mean, when you seen some of those pictures last night of, a gymnasium, a high school gym, and half the entire gym is filled up with Bernie Sanders people, And then the other side of the gym is filled up with every other candidate. I mean, it's something to see how much support, grassroots, young person type support he has. It truly is amazing. But he does have a problem, and it's a really big problem that's going to affect him later on in the primary, and it's going to definitely affect him in the general election. Last night, some of the numbers were interesting. He was getting almost 50% of the support from voters between 18 and 27, which is great. But he was only getting 5% of everybody who was voting over 65, which is abysmal. He needs to do way better than that to win this primary and definitely to move on against Trump and win the general election. Because here's the issue. The issue is in 2016, only 46% of the 18 to 27 group actually voted. So the turnout isn't really high at all. Now, in contrast, the 65 and older group, 71% of those people voted. So he needs to do a lot better with older people, but I don't think he's going to. I mean, it's not so much Bernie, it's his policies. His policy is what a lot of older people consider to be anti-American. A lot of people consider anti-American, and especially in the older groups. So you're not going to get those people. Those people are going to either stay home or they're going to vote for Trump in the general election. And later on in the primary, when you start getting to the southern states, you're going to see a lot more of these people come out and who have older demographics, and they're going to come out and they're going to vote for Biden. So when we finally get the results from the Iowa caucus, I'll make a video and then we'll do a deep dive on New Hampshire. Again, Bernie Sanders is expected to win. I certainly expect him to win. Wouldn't be surprised if he took Iowa. If Bernie Sanders doesn't win Iowa, it is going to be, the media is going to make it out to be a big deal because he was the favorite in all of the polls. But Buttigieg seemed to be doing pretty well. But again, people like him, people like Klobuchar, they're not going to last long. Pete may last a little more than Amy because he has more money, but he won't make it past Super Tuesday. He has very little support moving forward. So does she. She has very little support moving forward. So those two, this was their night. So you kind of feel bad for them. They spent, months and months, if not a year, in Iowa campaigning. And then all of a sudden, it's just basically taken from them. The spotlight is just taken from them when they really needed it most. But it is what it is. I'll make another video, maybe later today or tomorrow, about the results of the Iowa caucus. And I'll see you then. Thank you very much, everybody.